NFL. We had Thursday games, we have Friday games, we had Sunday games. Let's dive into it, talk the biggest and most important storylines. So the Lions beat the Bears on Thanksgiving, 23-20. The Bears had a disastrous last-second mismanagement of the clock, per usual. How does firing... Okay, so I'll put it this way. After they had that situation, the Bears fired their coach, Matt Eberflus. How does the midseason firing of Matt Eberflus affect Caleb Williams and the Bears situation moving forward? I think ultimately in the long term, it's going to be a pause because you saw Matt Eberflus, saw the way he carried himself, you saw his weird obsession trying to just look physically as suave and as cool as possible, trying to carry himself like a Mr. Cool guy, and refuses to take accountability for countless mistakes that he made, both as a head coach, as a play caller, as you know, an appointee of offensive coordinators, etc. Refuses to take timeouts, seemingly just doesn't understand what's going on the field of play, despite the fact that everybody else sees it clear as day. Everyone's looking at the clock and saying, hey man, take a timeout, take a timeout, take a timeout. Hey man, you should have more guys back. Hey, you shouldn't have given up 15 yards to let them throw a Hail Mary. And he refuses to take accountability for it. So getting rid of him in the long term is going to be the better choice. In terms of Caleb Williams, it's going to hurt him again. And these teams take these quarterbacks first overall and address no other issues. Maybe they add a receiver or a running back and they go, all right, well, let's go to the playoffs. That's not how this thing works. The Panthers did it with Bryce Young. The Bears have done it time and time again with Trubisky, with Justin Fields, now with Caleb Williams. If the Bears want Caleb Williams to be the guy and he's shown flashes of greatness, go out, do everything you possibly can, do all the due diligence necessary, the guy that's going to culturally change the organization as a head coach, and then every other resource you have, allocate that towards offensive linemen. Go out and get the best guys you can. Spend every penny you have on offensive linemen. Draft as many as you can. Protect. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And frankly, I think the Bears winning the first few games of this season did more damage to Caleb Williams than anything else, because it kept Matt Eberflus around longer than he should have been. And the Bears have the recipe for how can we screw things up and keep this perpetual disaster cycle going of GM, coach, quarterback, GM, coach, quarterback, GM, coach, quarterback, GM, coach, quarterback, to a point where now Caleb might be in trouble. I think he'll be okay. I think everyone recognized what the issues were. The offensive play caller, now the head coach, the players, it's the protection, it's the play calling. Now for the Bears, get a guy, establish it, go protect your Lions. On the other hand, by the way, 23-20 win. They're 11-1. The Lions looked a little more human in this game, having to play a pretty prominent defense that the Bears have, but that's the Lions, man, finding a way to win. They still kind of scare me. They still have their weird streaky periods of like lack of production. I don't know. The other games on Thanksgiving, Cowboys hosted the Giants, beat them 27-20 in the Poop Bowl. The Packers hosted the Dolphins and beat them 30-17. Dolphins season's certainly not over by any means. They're 5-7. They have some reasonable, games to potentially win as you look ahead on their schedule, but 5-7 is not great. The Packers are doing what the Packers have always done, which is finding ways to win as well. So interesting in that sense. Packers are pretty solid, and if they get some home field games, into the postseason, I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a run at the NFC Championship and challenge the Lions to some degree. Those guys are playing on Thursday Night Football, by the way, so keep that in mind. Black Friday football, Chiefs hosted the Raiders, beat them 19-17. The Chiefs, once again, didn't play very well. Patrick Mahomes didn't play outstanding. Didn't have a ton of big-time offensive performance overall. And again, they just win the game. The Raiders were driving down the field, had the ball in field goal range, snapped the ball on a miscommunication between center and quarterback, ended up being a penalty for the Raiders and having a 10-second runoff to end the game. And the Chiefs win on some weird black magic devil stuff again. In all seriousness, the Chiefs are very fundamentally sound. The Chiefs have a decent defense. And, again, we've talked about Mahomes time and time again as a guy who doesn't go out and make game-changing and game-losing decisions or throws as a quarterback. That being said, had to throw the ball 46 times, threw it for 306 yards and a touchdown. That was the only offensive touchdown of the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. According to the stats and metrics, Aiden O'Connell played better than Patrick Mahomes. Had more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, a better quarterback rating, a better passer rating. They ran for double the yards that the Chiefs did offensively. You got Brock Bowers had 10 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL at playing significantly worse than their opponent and still winning the game. Now, make of that what you'd like. I'm not saying the refs give the Chiefs every game. I'm not saying the NFL's rigged, but seemingly Mahomes has been able to accomplish what Tom Brady did time and time again in New England, which is, I don't know, I guess just for lack of a better term, they're hacking football. They control time of possession. They minimize penalties. They are fundamentally sound on special teams, punt the ball well. They make their field goals. They don't turn the ball over. And in crunch time situations, they force the other team to make stupid decisions or fault in some capacity. With all those things considered and all that stuff being said, I don't know if that's ultimately a recipe for success to make a deep run in the playoffs. I know the Chiefs are 11-1, but the Chiefs statistically are the worst 11-1 team in NFL history. And that's based on point differential. I saw something somewhere it was all the other teams that were 11-1 and the Chiefs have the lowest point differential of all those teams. Point being, I'm not scared of the Chiefs and I don't think a lot of teams should be. You have to play fundamentally sound and take care of the football when you play the Chiefs, but they are beatable. They are beatable. And if you look ahead at their schedule, again, as they sit there at 11-1, they play the Chargers, who they could potentially lose to. They'll probably beat the Browns. They'll probably beat the Texans. But then you go at Steelers, at Broncos to end your season. I think those will be the most telling. And if they come out of there with wins in all those games, then they really do just have officially hacked it. But they're just like the least scary 11-1 team in NFL history. Moving on to Sunday, Chargers, Falcons. The Chargers went to Atlanta, beat the Falcons 17-13. Kirk Cousins threw four interceptions. One of his worst games in recent memory. Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, man, they find ways to win. Steelers played the Bengals. Steelers beat the Bengals 44-38. What is the box score for Joe Burrow? 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the team loses. Russell Wilson threw for 414 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. The Steelers win by scoring more points, which is weird because I know that's how you win. I'm saying like they had to outscore somebody, which is not typically style of play the Steelers are favorable in. However, the Bengals defense is atrocious. So that's how they lose. Cardinals played the Vikings in Minnesota. Vikings beat them by 1 point. Cardinals are 6-6. Vikings are 10-2. Vikings, again, always seem to find a way to win. Colts beat the Patriots in New England 25-24. Seahawks beat the Jets 26-21, and they are in first place in the AFC West, now clear by a full game. Titans played the Commanders, Commanders beat the Titans 42-19. Titans are, but they're rebuilding, and it is what it is. The Texans played the Jaguars, beat them 23-20. Really brutal on Trevor Lawrence by Azeez Al-Shaair on the Texans. Can't happen, shouldn't happen, probably going to be suspended, I would imagine. Texans are 8-5, and it was an important win for the Texans. They needed that. And Rams played the Saints, beat them 21-14. Rams are 6-6. Saints are 4-8. Their season's over. Taysom Hill in this game tore his ACL. He'll be out for a while. Very unfortunate. Rams are 6-6. They're still right there in the hunt. They're a game out of the division lead. Bucks played the Panthers in Carolina. Bucks beat the Panthers 26-23 in overtime. As it turns out, no. Let me pose it as a question. Is Bryce Young still a bust? Apparently not. And all it took was 4 or 5 games for Bryce Young in his second season to settle in a little bit, make some pretty good throws, win a game or two, lead his team on some game tying or go ahead drives late in the fourth quarter for people to realize, maybe Bryce Young's lack of success early on in his NFL career wasn't entirely his fault. And then it's magnified when they play the Buccaneers. Bryce Young leads them down the field again, gives them the lead with literally like 33 seconds left, and the Panthers defense just can't stop the Bucs from getting into field goal range, tying the game at the end of regulation, and then going into overtime, and the Buccaneers get the ball first, miss a field goal. Bryce Young leads the team down the field again, and lo and behold, somebody besides Bryce Young causes his team to lose. Chuba Hubbard fumbles, Bucks get the ball back, kick a field goal, and win. Chuba Hubbard's been great, and I'm not saying Chuba Hubbard is the sole reason the Panthers lost. However, to say Bryce Young is a bust because the Panthers weren't successful as a team, when organizationally speaking, they were a dumpster fire, have been a dumpster fire since their one successful run with Ron Rivera and Cam Newton, it's not Bryce Young's fault. And somehow, some way, people are just now realizing that because Bryce Young is, I don't know, developed. It takes a little bit of time for guys to develop. It takes a little bit of time for quarterbacks to find success. Oh, especially on a team that is historically horrendous in terms of its roster construction. But Bryce Young's had 4 or 5 games in a row. CJ Stroud's had an average season this year. And people go, oh, maybe Bryce Young's not a bust. And maybe the Panthers being terrible and Bryce Young's numbers not being good wasn't entirely his fault. What a shocker. It's almost like a quarterback who's 5'10", a little bit of help around him. And despite that, Bryce Young has been making some elite throws, elite, high caliber throws in the last 5 or 6 weeks. But it's not all Bryce Young's fault. And by the way, he's not a bust. He was never going to be a bust. The Eagles played the Ravens and beat them 24-19. This is a good football game between two good football teams. The Ravens are 8-5, and it's just like they should be better than that because they have so many dynamic weapons on their offense. But they seem to give up bigger chunks than they should in some cases. Eagles win 24-19. And then the Bills hosted the 49ers on Sunday Night Football in the snow in Buffalo, beat them 35-10. 49ers are 5-7. Their season's over. They have nothing left. They're emotionally drained. They're physically drained. McCaffrey injured himself again. Sounds like it's a PCL injury in his knee. He'll probably miss a chunk of time, if not the rest of the season. No real reason for him to come back, in my opinion, but you don't never know. McCaffrey's a hard worker. But the 49ers are just battered, bruised. Fred Warner's hurt. Debo's been hurt for times. George Kittle's been out. Brock Purdy's been out. Christian McCaffrey's been out. Trent Williams has been out. Like, for the 49ers this year, just reset. Run it back. Run it back for next year. Part of going on a championship run was having injury health luck. They haven't had that this year. It's okay. They still have a bunch of good players. Isn't it for them this season. Dial it back. Start from square one next season. That's the NFL.